Hi! If you're new to my channel, my name is Jerry. One of my passions is raising worms, among lots of other things, scanners, photography, hummingbirds. But one of the main things you'll see on this channel is raising worms, because I have quite a few of them. And today I wanted to show you how you can use phone books as bedding and as food, which will turn into food eventually, for your worms. I did this last year, about August, so it's been over a year that these worms have been living in the phone book bin, as I call it, since last year. And I wanted to show you making a new one this year. I've had 3 full phone books, which are the thick type, and about 3 small mini phone books, sitting for about 3 months now. I was going to make this sooner, but I wanted to let this sit really good. Sitting in basically well water, and I'm using rainwater in this bin also for it to soak. Soaking will increase the microbe activity. If you just throw it in all at once, it's not going to work too well. And I wanted to make sure that this had a good, at least start of it being wet and some microbe activity in there, which, you know, you won't see that, but that's what the worms feed off of. And I already have a bin already made from last year, all the castings that I've shown previous videos, but I'll show you again here. But let's get started with ripping up some phone books. So hopefully you don't live in Yavapai County. That's the phone books I have, Yavapai County. And my worms will be calling you. I've already caught them a few times calling people. They like to cold call. Get it? Cold. They don't like the cold. They do warm calls because they live in a warm environment. But it's very simple to rip up a phone book. You have the front cover here. You rip that off. You have the back cover, so you can't use those because they're a shiny type of paper. And then you have the regular phone book. So you take a few, not the whole thing, but just take a few pages, rip those off, and then take about that section, about a 1-inch section, and rip it off. They come easy. You don't want to take half your phone book and try to rip it like you see guys on TV do. You're not going to do it. I kind of can, but it's difficult. But just make less than like a 1/2 inch to 1 inch rips in it. It's that easy. See, they're not big, and the phone books rip up in no time. Actually, you might get a little ink on your fingers from the phone book. Wash that off afterwards. You just don't want any of the shiny pages, which most of my phone books At least this one doesn't have any shiny pages. But it has a map. See, that's Sedona. Anybody been to Sedona? I've been there a few times. More than a few times. And hopefully my worms don't see that either. They might go to Sedona. I never thought of that. They could call people and travel around the state. Anyways, getting back to ripping up the phone book. And you just keep going in sections, just ripping them up, you know, into pieces. So that's maybe about an inch. That's all you need. It's very simple to get this done. Let it soak. That's the main thing, is let your phone book soak beforehand. I did it last year, totally different, because I didn't know what to expect. I ripped up the whole phone books. I think I used 4 last year. And this year we're doing 3, 4, 5, 6... I think I'm doing at least 7 to 8 phone books this year. 4 phone books and an 18-gallon or 20-gallon bin. Excuse me. Filled up the whole thing. But once you wet it down, it mats down, as I found out, and I'll show you here in a minute. It mats down and it compresses. So what you have to do before you, after you soak it and before you put it into your working bin, is you got to break it up with a 3-prong fork. See, 3-prong fork. So you just break it up, which I've been doing some to this, and then you want air. You want air involved into the phone book mixture. You know, into the pages. Your worms will go through anyway and aerate the bin and work through it, but to start off with, you want space in between there to get the air and the so it's aerobic, an aerobic situation, which means air involved, and not anaerobic, which means no air involved. So you want to break up the material first, get it all loose, and then put it into your bin, which I'll show you here after I show you the phone books that have been sitting in the soaking bin. So as you can see, this is all that's been soaking, as I said. And you get clumps like this, how it's matted, and you just take your 3-prong fork and break it up. See, there's still water down the bottom, which is fine. You want it about 80 to 90% moisture, so you don't want it soak, but you want it some moisture, you know, a little bit of water in there is not going to hurt. And what I'm going to do with this is I'm going to put the dry stuff on the bottom, so if there's an excess amount of water that's sitting there, the dry phone book pages will absorb that, and then I don't have to worry about it too much. So I'll put a dry layer of probably 3 or 4 phone books and put this wet stuff on top, and then put the castings and the worms on top of that. Why the castings? The castings will incorporate more microbes and have a living bedding and some food to it also. It basically kickstarts your bin of the microbe activity, giving the worms somewhere to stay in right now. Yeah, it kickstarts the population of the microbes so they can duplicate faster and get your bin going, instead of, there's microbes in here already, but there's even more into the castings. So that's why I like using my castings and my worms together when I start a new bin. It helps out greatly. It reduces the time you have to wait for the bin to get established. It establishes a bin, which means you can add food quicker. Like this bin, I'll add food maybe 2 or 3 weeks. I don't want to stress them out that much right at first. I'd rather give them some time to adjust to their bin, and then feed them about 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks after this. So let's have a look at the castings from the last bin. So as you can see, the worms are near the top of the container, and that tells me right there their environment isn't that great. The castings are nice and moist, and this was one of the cardboard lids I like to put on my bins. As you can see there, that was part of the lid, and they've ate it. If I move this back, you'll see some worms there, and the worms are feeding on the cardboard. That's why it's there. But if we dig down into this, look at all that. That's all nice castings. And then the worms living in it. I'm trying to find a bunch of them, but they're not in one group because I haven't fed this thing in months. I wanted them to work down the castings, or work down the material to a casting, I should say. But they will enjoy their new bins. So this will be going into 2 other bins that I've made. Some of this will be going into the isopod bin, and then I'll put some of these back into this bin here itself, and have the worms reproduce in here and grow. Right now I'm not seeing any cocoons, which I wouldn't think I would be, because the population has stabilized in this bin to what it's going to be. They get up to a certain population, which is about probably 2 to 3 pounds in this bin. And I'm just digging around. See, there's just worms. Basically everywhere I'm digging, there's worms. And they'll stabilize their population. They will, go to maybe 2 to 3 pounds in this, and that's it. They know when not to, if there's no food, and if there's no space, or they feel not enough space available, they'll stop reproducing and just live on their own. So There were a lot more castings in here than I thought there were. I haven't really dug into this bin. I've left it alone. But I'll use these castings to inoculate the other bins plus the isopod bin. So as you can see, this is about 2.5 phone books worth. I figured I'd put a good base of ripped up dry stuff. You know, and this will compress down and mat a little bit after a while. But next I want to put a wet layer of some wet phone books, you know, the ones I have shredded and soaked, on top of this. So as you can see, so there's a wet layer of phone books, and then I want to sprinkle or put a thin layer of the compost with worms, and then put another layer on top of this. So I'll show you the layer of compost first. So the layer of compost, and that will help inoculate the bin, as I said. And then I want to put another layer of wet phone book on top of this, and another layer of compost on top of that. And what I'll do is cover the whole thing up with the remaining wet phone book, and that should keep the moisture in. And then I'll top it off with a cardboard lid. And the final bunch of wet phone book pages covered on top. And all I do now is just put the cardboard lid on top. It seems to help. It's helped in the other bins that I've had. And I just cut it roughly to the size of the container. So that's the making of a phone book bin. I hope you enjoyed the video today of how to make a phone book bin, you know, for your worms to live in. It makes great castings. Must have been at least 50 to 60 pounds of castings out of this, but that's over after a year of them working through it. So if you're new to the channel, please give it a thumbs up, please subscribe, and thanks for watching today. Hi! Thanks for stopping by. If you're new, I'm Jerry. Hence the, yeah, that's not going to work. Hi, if this is your first time to my channel, I'm Jerry. One of my passions is worms. Oh, that don't sound good either.